in their glory gleam, and the stars on high twinkle in the sky.
Born Laura Rachel Bumgarner on August 14, 1929 in Lucasville, Ohio, Laurie Franks came into the world 2.5 months before the start of the Great Depression. In those days, Lucasville was a small rural town of 303 people who were mostly farmers and spoke with a southern Ohio country accent. Her parents, Guy Bumgarner, a high school teacher, and her mother, Nell Bumgarner, a graduate from business school, who had worked as a secretary before marrying Guy, were among the few people in town who had graduated from college. The couple, who were descendants of 18th century German immigrants, were loving but strict, old-fashioned Midwesterners who kept Laurie generally isolated from the outside world throughout her childhood. Her earliest memories were of practicing piano for many hours and bouncing a rubber ball on the side of her parents' house. She was not allowed to date, even after she graduated from high school. Even though Laurie's musical talent and singing ability were known to her parents, the rest of the family, and folks in town, no one could have predicted the stellar career in theater and film that she would go on to have once she left Lucasville to attend Cincinnati College of Music.
I was going to audition because some of the kids from Cincinnati, people my age, going down to audition for Louisville Amphitheater Outdoor Theater. And I said, can I go too? And they said, sure, just pay your expenses along with the rest of us. And I did, and I went in and sang, because I'd been singing now for a little while. And I went in and sang, and they said, we're having the callbacks next Monday. I know this is Saturday, and then we go right into rehearsal. But since we know we want you, you don't need to drive. That's a big drive. They didn't know I didn't drive. Anyway, and so they said, but we'd like to have you in our cast, and it's 6 shows over the summer. And they said, but it's hard to explain this to you, but we think we want to put you in that first number in Where's Charlie? And so they did.
Where is Charlie's is the name of that play, the first play you worked on?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, anyway, what I needed to do, they said, was, by the way, they said, what is your waist size? And of course, you know you have to join equity. I said, my waist is 18.5 inches. And what's equity? Actors' equity, this is. And at that time, you only paid I think it was $25 to join, because they would allow you to have that over two summers.
2 summers.
And that would make it $50 or something like that. So that's what I did. I paid my equity dues.
And what year was that when you joined Equity?
I think it was 1951.
51, wow.
It was before the chorus equity became the whole equity.
No,
I'd forgotten that until I saw it the other day.
Right.
Anyway, so they wanted me to sing a high C in that for 16 beats each time, laying flat on this side stage in a bikini outfit, which wasn't exactly what people did then. And it was a tropical scene.
Oh, I see.
And I'd hold that note and lay on the floor on the side stage, and they were looking for somebody just like me with with only a few inches on my waist.
Right.
And I learned what equity was.
After graduating from Valley High High School in 1946 at the age of 16, Laurie was accepted at the Cincinnati College of Music. There she majored in piano, voice, and organ, and graduated with both a bachelor's and master's degree in music in 1952. During that period, she was hired as a professor of voice and organ at Wilmington College, Ohio, from 1947 to 1950. She also taught voice and was the director of the opera department at Hendrix College, Ohio, from 1950 to 1952. She did all this while performing in 3 seasons of summer stock at the Louisville Amphitheater, Kentucky, from 1950 to 1953.
When I went to college, the first time I wanted to go home was Thanksgiving, of course. I just turned 17. And I've learned since they called me the baby of the class. Okay, so I turned 17. Nobody had told me anything about babies or anything like that. So this sailor helped me on to it was that big old Cincinnati terminal. It's built in the shape of the Crosley radio. Wonderful place. Anyway, I took some clothes home with me in a bag, and the sailor helped me get on the train with my bag and everything, and it was Thanksgiving vacation. And there weren't many people on the train, and it stopped in South Portsmouth. That's the Kentucky side of Portsmouth. And Portsmouth is 10 miles from Lucasville. It's on the Ohio River. And so he kissed me. And he stuck his tongue in my mouth.
Ooh.
And I was going home for Thanksgiving, and I didn't know what to do. So I was very quiet over Thanksgiving. And when I got back to Cincinnati and the dormitory, I asked my roommate, who was Joan Clark. She played the cello, but that has nothing to do with this story. She got all the people on 4B. She said, "Come in here. We got to tell Laurie. We got troubles here. We got to tell Laurie some things she doesn't know about life." So they all gathered round on the beds in Clark's in my room. I had a wastebasket with me at the foot of the bed just in case I threw up. And so they told me everything because I had thought I was going to have a baby.
Oh, why?
Because he kissed me and stuck his tongue in my mouth.
So you thought that would make you pregnant?
I had never been, yeah.
And you were how old, 17?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes. He didn't help.
And when they told you the facts of life, what did you get scared?
That's why I had the wastebasket.
Did you get sick?
I thought I would, but I just got very quiet and I tried to figure these things out because I still didn't know much. And it was not, music schools, genders seem to be misproportioned in school. I just had to inch my way along because there were guys that seemed to be going with other guys too. And I looked at all this stuff. I just didn't know what to do. So I just tried to practice piano and sing as much as I could. I found out there in school that I could sing pretty well and sing pretty high and sing pretty loud. And I've been doing that
ever since.
The president of the college, Hendrix College, came to see me and hired me. And I said, how did you know me? And he said, your mother wrote a letter to us. Oh, I see. Okay. And so I went there that fall and I met this charming young man who was in his junior year of college, piano player and wanted to be a conductor. Now he's conducted all over the world. And now I have moved on. He has moved on, but we did get married right away when the Hendrix College guy told us that we had to get married or else I couldn't teach there because there was something wrong with me dating a student.
And what was his name?
Dobbs Franks.
Oh, I see.
He's in Australia now and conducting. Dobbs got a scholarship to Juilliard in New York. And I stopped by to see my folks on the way and then went on to New York, and we lived on 88th Street on the west side there. I'll never forget that first taxi ride in New York when he picked me up at the bus station because I came from Lucasville and I had to ride the bus.
In a bus? Oh my God.
So anyway, first night that we were there, he had gotten tickets for the last night of Wonderful Town.
Is that a play?
At the Winter Garden.
Okay. Wonderful Time at the Winter.
Many years later, I spent 3 years at the Winter Garden on stage in the musical Mame that was adapted from from Anti-Mame, the play. And then Jerry Herman wrote all this wonderful music. So actually, the people who wrote the Anti-Mame story had to actually cut some of the best joke lines that you could have out of that show because they had to get Jerry Herman's music in there. And it ended up to be quite a hit when we were in Philadelphia and still rehearsing for New York. We started with the previews in Philadelphia. And after the first night of previews, there was a line around from the old Schubert Theater in Philadelphia all the way around up the street to Music Hall and make a left there and go all the way back in the next block.
That's because it was such a hit? Because it was such a hit?
It was such a hit.
Wow.
That was a very exciting night. I did on Broadway in different capacities. I had some good things to do in Mame, that's for sure. I ended up playing Agnes Gooch. I was going on as Agnes Gooch, and they were painting my name on that great big billboard in front of the marquee at the Winter Garden.
That must have been quite a moment for you.
Oh, it was quite exciting. But anyway, I got to New York finally and started. My first audition there, I think, was for Radio City Music Hall.
Oh, and what did you do there?
I was one of the ensemble people. The Christmas and Easter show did have, before it's turned into a different kind of, they had these small stages up on the side, 3 tiers of them, and we would come down singing "Oh Holy Night" or whatever. I think that's what it was. Oh no, maybe, yeah. I forget some things. Anyway, we came down those stairs and onto the stage. Nobody had ever mentioned that there was a steam curtain that came up when you were on a certain plateau.
Steam?
A steam curtain that was to give the illusion of fog and stuff.
Oh, I see.
And I was standing right in one of the middle of those things. You don't know where you are on stage when the steam curtain. Anyway, whenever I think of the Radio City Music Hall now, I always think of that.
So, was that your first job in New York City?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, I got there by auditioning for a chorale group, Joe Liebling's group.
In Radio City?
In New York.
Okay.
In New York. And then, because I was his soprano soloist, I went in thinking of maybe getting pretty good. And this was already my 7th show in New York.
In Radio City?
In Broadway. And, yeah.
So that's your first job was Radio City?
The first job, yeah, the first real job was
Okay.
Radio City, and then I had to leave that show on the first day because my girlfriend from the road company, I had already done a road company.
Road
a
company.
Fanny.
Oh, Fanny. I see.
And so she called from the theater and said, they just lost their top soprano for this show. Laurie, I think you should come over and audition. It's Fanny and it's a national company. It's over at the Belasco now, and the auditions are at I think the 46th Street Theater. I'm not sure. I know what the theater, there's a couple of them I get mixed up there. And I auditioned. I got that job. I had to go back to Radio City and tell them that I needed to give my notice.
All around there's a sound of the midsummer
So
night.
here you are, just fresh off of Ohio. You get to New York, and right away people are competing for you. That's amazing. That because when you're talented,
Do you think it was the size of my waist? I don't know.
I think it
What?
was everything. I think
Everything.
the way you looked and your
And
talent.
the innocence.
Yeah, but somehow everybody wanted you, and you kept stepping into the right places at the right time.
I did.
Yeah.
But I worked so hard,
Oh, I'm sure you did.
because I was not trained for this.
Well, but all those 6 years in college and teaching and all that was your training and the
It
summer
was.
stock.
It was.
And you probably had a lot more skill and more ability than a lot of people that
Oh,
studied it. you know?
the people, the conductor in Louisville called me the note. The
What?
note meaning that I had perfect pitch.
Perfect
And
pitch.
he would, the guy who played, I can't think of his name, is a very attractive man. He had a show, but he couldn't learn this music. He had a show on Broadway.
On Broadway?
And he did movies and everything, and he was they gave me this guy to take upstairs to the rehearsal room
And
to teach the
to
song,
teach him the song.
because a lot of those people don't have much musical training.
That's right. That's right. And you can
And
read and write music. and play
I
instruments.
knew music I took composition, I took all those things.
Wow.
I was overqualified for Broadway when it came to music.
Yeah, but
I know that later on in life, I remember Maurice Levine, who was the conductor in Copper and Brass, the show I did. He he had 2 or 3 of the string instruments because he liked to conduct serious music in between the shows,
Right.
and he asked me to play the piano with him,
Oh, wow.
and in between the shows. And I did, because I just loved to do that, and I didn't do it to show off or anything.
right.
And neither did Maurice. We just did it because that's what we like to do.
And this is with orchestras and
Yeah, we down in the pit in between shows.
oh my God.
Several of us would stay in and order a sandwich or something and play string quartet, whatever.
Oh my
whatever came
goodness. What a
Piano
wonderful
quartet.
thing to happen to you.
It was.
And because you were so well trained and you had so much ability.
And that was the reason that Dobbs and I got along so well.
Well, he was a great musician, or is
Really
a great
good
musician.
musician.
Right. He's a conductor now.
Yes,
right?
he is. Yes, and I hadn't heard from him many, many years, and he sent me a list of the things that he'd conducted. The paper, I think, it just went on forever, the different things over the years. I never thought about that, but conductors have lists like resumes, I guess.
Yeah, sure.
Of
Yeah,
stuff too.
all the stuff.
But that's what I did up until I got to New York. But that's just a short summary, believe me.
Well,
There were loads of things that
That was
happened
quite
to
a
me.
bit. I mean, that's an amazing, journey from childhood, and the fact that already in high school, the principal was already recognizing your great talent and ability, and told you, said, "Look, just don't come in half-day. We want you to."
Isn't that something?
That's something. That's something.
I just took all these things in stride. I didn't realize until you were saying that you would like to delve into why I'm where I am and what I have done.
Well, you've had
And-
such a storied career. I just wanted to find out all about it, starting from your childhood. I mean, and actually now in Ohio, you're in your town. You're a big celebrity over there. I mean, they love you there, don't they?
Yeah, they gave me an honorary doctorate. People call me Dr. Franks.
Dr.
And then
Franks.
everybody else calls me Laura Rachel. Oh, and I didn't tell you that I did. I knew there was something I left out that was very important. When I went back to one of those alumni dinners in Lucasville,
For high school?
yeah, alumni for high school, yeah.
For high school, right.
And I took Mother, it was just one of those. And we were sitting across from Edith Brisker, who was my 3rd grade teacher.
Oh, wow.
And she said, Laura Rachel, you know, you should have your name on the flood wall. What do you mean on the flood wall? My name on the flood wall? She said, didn't anybody ever tell you that now in Portsmouth, Ohio, now that big flood wall has been built,
This
that
is
we
for
have
the river, right?
for the river, yes. And somebody comes and paints the murals
On the wall.
on the wall, on the inside of the things that happened to Portsmouth many, many years ago, and paints all the different things that happened in the city. And on the other side, there are empty stars, and as people that they know that have made it doing something in life besides just living in Portsmouth, although it's good living in Portsmouth, they take you up in a cherry picker, and they have you sign in a star, a great big star on the wall. And so they had me sign Laurie Franks.
Oh.
And below it, I said, I can't just leave it like this. I said, A.K.A. Laura Rachel Bumgarner.
Right.
I wrote that below it. So my name is on the flood wall in
Oh,
Portsmouth.
how wonderful.
If you float down the river, you can see
You
it.
can see them.
Yeah. A lot of people don't realize that when I first came out here to L.A., that if you just put Broadway shows, it could be any place in the country as far as they're
Right,
concerned.
because there's so many
They
traveling
were wrong.
companies.
They said, be sure you put the original cast.
Right, original
There.
cast
On Broadway.
Right.
And Broadway is not just Broadway.
Right.
I think a lot of people don't know where Broadway really is because they've never been around
Well, it's
that.
become a generic term.
It's
from
from
Broadway shows.
Broadway shows, but it's from 42nd to 59th Street,
That's right. In
and
Manhattan, New York.
east over to all close to 5th Avenue, and west close to 8th Avenue,
Right.
and on 8th Avenue, and that whole area. If there's a show, if there's a big show and it's Equity, or Equity, that's where Broadway is.
If you
So,
bought me
Here you are.
diamond.
You're on the road with Fanny. Were you gone for like months? How long were you gone?
I think it was 8 months.
8 months. So you must have
Yes.
traveled throughout the whole United States.
We did.
Yeah.
We did. And did you know the trains back into St. Louis?
They back into it? They don't drive forward?
Somebody told me that before I went, before I was on that. They got to be kidding.
Right.
There they were. We backed into the train backs in so that it's ready to go out.
Oh, that's funny. So here you come back from the road, right? And you come back to New York, is that?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
I didn't lose my apartment
Right.
at that time.
Right. And so then something happened and you...
I bought a newspaper that said show business. And I went to the Equity office and saw what was coming up. And I went to the audition for Copper and Brass.
Copper and Brass, wow.
And Nancy Walker was starring in that. I don't even know whether people are aware of who Nancy Walker is.
Tell
But
us.
she was a fabulous lady with her mime everything about her, the clubs that she did several good Broadway shows. And she was 4'10", I think, tall. We didn't get to see that very long because the show didn't last very long. But just really, after it opened, just a few days. And her leading man was Dick Williams.
Oh, sure.
Dick Williams was Andy Williams' brother.
Right.
And they were the brothers. I think there were 4 of them that had a quartet that they
There were
performed.
singers.
Yeah, singers.
Singers.
Yeah. Anyway, but I remember this day in rehearsal when the director, I wish I could think of his name, David T. Meyer? No, I don't think so. Anyway, no, I don't have it on. I don't know what it was.
Right.
Anyway, she was going to sing this really beautiful song, and that's when the director came up to me and said, "You see that bench over there? I want you to go sit on that bench, and that sailor that's over there, the one that's got the sailor suit on, is going to come over here and kiss you, and you're not to move from that kiss until Nancy Walker is through with this song. She's just come up out of the subway and she's singing this song." Well, I thought, I'm no director, but I sure wouldn't have somebody holding a kiss through a song if I wanted to hear the song, because you're always going to look and see what they're doing.
Right, what do they do?
Yes. But maybe that's one of the reasons it didn't make it. I don't know. But there were things that just happened, and it did not make it. And so Bells Are Ringing had been active for some time.
That was the play that was already running.
Yes.
Right.
We came into the O'Neill Theater with Copper and Brass. It lasted a few days. They have to give you 2 weeks notice. So after it opens, you have to wait 2 weeks, or else pay the people anyway, which
Right.
sometimes they do.
Right.
And so this was a show, Bells Are Ringing, had been...
Famous show.
It was a hit show already. Judy Holliday.
Oh, God bless her.
She's
was
wonderful,
She was
absolutely
wonderful, yeah.
fabulous. And so she was still with the show,
Right.
and Hal Linden had just replaced Sidney Chaplin. That's the son of Charlie Chaplin.
Charlie Chaplin, right.
And he's the one that was the leading man, I think, in Funny Girl, too. Right?
I see.
Yeah, anyway, he had left, and Hal Linden was there, and was a good cast. And I discovered that they needed a replacement for one of the girls. And she had a name in the show, and I don't remember that. I know it's a pretty program, but I think I probably gave my program away. The program had Judy Holliday on the front of it with a little kid. She was holding a kitty cat. I don't know why, but she was. It was sweet. In Bells Are Ringing, I sang, and they said, well, it looks like she'd fit the costume. That's what they were more concerned about than anything else. And the singing.
Right.
And the wardrobe lady came up after they'd hired me, and she said, she's shorter than the other girl. When they all looked at each other. So,
So.
we tried. And I think I was always long-waisted, so I always looked taller for some reason
Yes, you were.
than so anyway, I got in the show, and it was getting close to time for the anniversary. I believe it was the first year anniversary. I think it had
Bells
two.
Are Ringing.
And Bells Are Ringing.
Right.
I think we had 2 anniversaries. Started out the Schubert Theater. We're still in the Schubert Theater. Later on, we went to the Alvin. They say it has a black marquee, meaning death for the. I don't think
Death
that's
for
true.
any show that shows up there.
Yeah, the next show, when the show moves to the Alvin, you know it's on its way out.
Oh, good.
Well, I don't think that's really true, but anyway.
So
we
you were
were
still at the Schubert.
we were still at the Schubert.
And you hadn't moved to the Alvin
No, and it was the first anniversary, I believe.
of the.
And so there were some special people out in the audience because it was going to be a big party. But we were having a party on stage in the scene at the beginning of the second act, and my partner and I were dancing in the middle of the stage in the front. I don't know why, just that's the way it was set up. And some man came up to me and said, "May I have this dance?" I said, "No, thank you. I have a partner."
While you were on stage?
Yes.
Oh, that's-
The curtain was just beginning to go up, and he said this.
Wow, that's strange.
Yes. And so I said, "No, thanks. I have a partner." And he went over to the next person, who was Adrian Angel, and she said hello to him and started dancing with him. And after, when we were coming off stage, I still remember I said to Adrian, "Who was that man?" She said, "That was Julie Stein." I said, "So who's he?" She said, "He wrote the show."
Oh my God.
Such songs as "Just in Time," "I Found You Just in
Oh
Time,"
my God.
and "The Party's Over, It's Time to Call It a Day," and what's another one? "Long Before I Knew You," long before. That's just three of the beautiful songs.
And you didn't know who he was.
I didn't know who Julie Stein was, but I got to know Julie Stein later, and I just adored him. This next one was Something More, and it was a remake of the show Portofino.
And I remember you saying something that this show was the hardest to deal with.
Yes, it was. Just because it had been with, fashioned after Portofino, which had lasted one night on Broadway, I think.
I see.
And so nobody had hopes
So
for
it was a remake?
this. Well, it wasn't. It was a new version of the same thing. But in that show, I got to have the daisy that Alvin Colt puts on one person, a little embroidered daisy, because he had good luck with Guys and Dolls way back when, and ever since then he put the daisy, a little embroidered daisy, on somebody's costume. He would put it on my pedal pushers, and so I had the daisy. And so that was a good sign.
That was like an honor to have the daisy?
Well, yes, because he was a funny guy, and he sure did a lot of shows, Alvin Colt. And so, yes, it was a good luck sign, but it didn't seem to work very much. This is the one that had, I think we had, yes, we had rewrites every day.
Rewrite every day? Oh, that must
Uh-huh.
have been tough on the cast.
They put different colored pieces of paper in on the rewrites every day,
Why?
so that they'd know which ones were for which day. And if you were smart, you didn't have to keep the paper. You didn't have to keep the ones they were tearing out. But if you wanted to, you could, because sometimes they'd go back to the one from last week and put it in. Get out the blue ones. You know?
God, what a mess.
Yeah, it was a very pretty script,
Lots
but
of
it didn't mean
colors.
much. So there was a part in it that, this had Barbara Cook,
Yeah,
Arthur Hill,
right,
Vivica Lindfors, Peg Murray, Michael Camoyan, lots of good people.
right.
And they were having trouble with the part of the Countess, and for some reason, I was understudying something else, but oh no, I had a good part, that's what it was. I was the American tourist,
Uh-huh.
and my husband was Taylor Reed. The two of us were American. So they used it like skits here and there through the show. But in the meantime, they told me to look over the part that somebody else was playing, the Countess. And I did. And they started rewriting the Countess's part. So they brought somebody else in for the Countess, and they used me to the old script from the day before, and then they would make an announcement and say that this person had taken ill, and that I would be this person would be leaving the show for tonight, and Laurie will be taking over. And they did that. This poor woman, she couldn't go out to eat any place, because any place she went.
So she was the understudy.
No, she was the principal.
Okay.
She had to learn the new script.
Oh, I see.
And she wasn't doing the new script. They put it on my shoulders.
Oh my God.
And so every place she went to eat, she said, they said, "You're not sick." Anyway, so it was big trouble all the way around with this thing.
And how long did that show run?
We got into town. These things were happening out of town.
Oh, I see.
And I got a pretty good salary that week, and the week after that, because they were having me do so many different things. That same time, I auditioned for another show, and it was called Pleasures and Palaces.
Oh, okay.
And it was written about Catherine the Great, I think. Yes. And it starred Hi Hazel. She was a performer from England.
Oh.
And Bob Fosse directed. And Frank Loesser wrote the music. Now tell me, could you go wrong with all this?
No, you would think not.
We closed in Detroit.
Didn't even make it to Broadway.
No, but Frank Loesser, bless his heart, he always had something cheery to say. I remember at the auditions, he said, "Laurie, go over there and stand by the garbage cans, and I'll call you my messy soprano." Okay. And he said, "That's just because I don't want to say mezzo soprano." And so anyway, I knew it was that we were friends, but it didn't get into town. But he gathered a few of us together. Bob Fosse was sitting on the stage, sitting on the front of the stage out in Detroit at the big, beautiful theater, Ford Theater, is it? I think. And he was the one that said, we were closing, we were going on to Boston, but we're closing instead. And Frank Loesser gathered some of us around out in the stairwell and said, "You never know about these things." He said, "Guys and Dolls, we had so many wonderful songs that we cut out one, but when Happy Fella was trying to come into town, we took that song and put it in Most Happy Fella, and it helped our song, because our show, because the songs we had were, they said, too operatic." And so the song was Standing on the Corner.
Standing on the corner.
Yeah.
Da, 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 da.
That's it. Yeah. So he was always hopeful about these kind of things. That was his last show, and you thought you were really in a hit because it was Bob Fosse and Frank Loesser, but you never can tell. Then I went into an audition for another show. Rachmaninoff music,
Oh my God.
done by Wright and Forrest and Wright, whichever way you want. And they had rearranged and used Song of Norway, Edvard Grieg. They did Kismet, it was Borodin, all these wonderful things. And here was Anya, the story of Anastasia. with Rachmaninoff music.
Didn't work out either, did it?
We didn't even go out of town.
Oh, God.
And the day after it opened, there was a matinee. And so I signed in a little early. The first thing I did before opening night, the first thing I did on the first preview, I was so sure it was going to work that I bought 2 large tubes of toothpaste.
Why?
Well, because they had a sale on it at the drugstore on the corner, and I thought I'll take one home, and this one will last me maybe the whole year that we're here at the Ziegfeld Theater.
Right.
The Ziegfeld Theater, that was the last show ever in the Ziegfeld Theater.
Oh, how sad.
And then the Ziegfeld Theater they tore that down, and then it became the Ziegfeld Movie Theater.
Right.
In the same spot. I think it's 54th close to 5th. Is it? I think so.
Yeah.
Anyway, this now I'm talking the morning after the opening, and I signed in early for the matinee. And I knew they were rehearsing a show over at the city center. Around the corner was the stage door. I ran around the corner to the stage, to where you could go into the stage door, took the elevator up to the 6th floor. I knew that's where they rehearsed. I think I'd been there before playing a show. Anyway, I knocked on the door. I heard them singing inside. I wasn't sure what show they were doing. It was Oklahoma.
Oh, my God.
And so Jean Dalrymple, she always bought the things from the shows that she'd buy the sets
Oh, yeah.
for $1 or something and keep them and store them over in Jersey, and then she'd have a chance to do them at City Center later,
Right.
she's a very smart business lady. So I knocked on the door, and Abba Bogan came to the door, and he said, "Hello," and he laughed, and he said, "I'm really sorry about your show." So, people always were, So he said to the pianist, Don Smith, who was at the piano, "Look who's here." And they said, "Come in, come in, come in." They said, "These girls, they're very pretty, and they have very pretty voices, and they were hand-picked, but they can't sing harmony."
Oh, God.
So he said, "Come back after your matinee, and we'll talk to Jean Dalrymple. We'll probably have a contract ready for you."
Wow.
So,
That's so funny. And so you got the gig?
yeah. But I said, "Could you do me just leave my name out of the program, please?" And they did. So guess what? Opening night, when whoever bought the champagne for the company bought bottles for every person in the cast, I was the only one that didn't get one because my name wasn't in the program. I didn't care.
But you were still in it.
I was still in it, and I didn't want to be in it,
Right.
really, but our show was closing. So I went back over to the other theater, gave my notice, just in case it ran longer.
Right.
And it did run 2 weeks longer than
Oh, my God.
than after that. So I gave my notice, and my understudy had to go on for
Oh,
me. So that's the 3 that I did. I did nothing that year but rehearse, it seemed like.
So,
And
yeah,
all
'cause
those pink
all the
colors
shows
and
kept closing.
Pardon?
All the shows you were rehearsing on
Yeah,
kept closing. Or
kept
didn't
closing.
Make, but at least you were making money, right?
There's a time when it's really hard to make that kind of money because we were in 10 out of 12, if you know what that means.
No.
Okay, I'll tell you. That show that had the pink pages and the blue pages and the yellow
Right,
pages.
right.
We were out of town,
Right.
and we had what's called 10 out of 12, meaning when you're rehearsing and doing numbers that you have to have the costumes and the shoes, the new shoes, all those things. sometimes I run through the last 5 days, and they give you 10 hours out of the 12 hours that you have
Oh, I see.
at the theater. So you can only have, you can just have one long break in the middle, like an hour and a half,
Right.
really, basically, and go, and that goes on for a week or so, or 2
That,
weeks.
that must be exhausting.
It is.
Oh.
And so, and then also, when I finally got to Oklahoma and learning the harmony, I was still doing, I was going over there doing the show, Anya, for the 2 weeks, and then going back over to City Center to do rehearsals for Oklahoma.
Oh, wow.
So I was doubling again.
So you must have been really tired.
And sometimes when you're learning more than one part, you get tired too.
Yeah, sure.
It's hard to,
It's hard to remember two different. Yeah, that's got to be difficult.
yeah. I was really tired. So I went to the audition for Mame.
Ah, Mame.
Now, who could ask for anything more than
More.
that? Because first, they had looked all over everywhere to find the perfect Mame. And they finally brought Angela Lansbury back one more time
I see.
and said, this is it. She worked hard to get that show, and she got it, and she should have.
Good actress.
B. Arthur,
She also did Mame.
she did Vera.
Oh.
Vera in Mame. Vera Charles. And actually, her husband was the director, Gene Sachs. They were married then, I think. Pretty sure. And Jane Cannell was Gooch. And they made Gooch's part into one part. It had been the two parts in the play version. There was an Irish lady that brought Patrick to Auntie Mame. And then this other person was the secretary. But not in our musical version. Gooch had a bigger part. It was a wonderful part. Anyway, I auditioned. I was kept all day. I was the last one left. And they dismissed me.
Oh, wow.
I sat down in the basement of the theater. I knew the theater wherever we were rehearsing. But I mean, wherever we had the audition, because I'd played there. And I knew that there was just a nice, warm, comfortable place in the basement next to some of the dressing rooms. And I went down there and I sat there
Feeling terrible.
just feeling awful, just awful. And I went home and I started getting a boil
Oh, God.
someplace. And I did have that for a day or two.
Oh, terrible.
My window washer came and he said, I just mentioned you to Don Pippin.
Your window washer.
Yeah. Don Pippin was our conductor for Mame, the conductor for Mame. And he said that they're having trouble at the theater because one of the girls that had done the backers auditions for Jerry Herman was going to be the understudy to Gloria Upson and also sing soprano and belt, both, in the show. And she left, and he said he was very disappointed. And my window washer said, do you know who Laurie Franks is? He said, is she that girl that has the blonde double dip over her eye? Yes. Do you have her number? They called me.
Wow.
But he said, but I kind of remember how you sing, because I know it's a good voice. He said, but you got to come in and sing for Jerry and me both. at Variety Arts tomorrow at 3:45 or whatever. I did. And that's how I got in Mame.
Oh, wow.
And that was 3.5 years.
You were on that show.
I was.
Wow.
And that was a relief. But first, I was in the chorus and understudying Gloria Upson. Then I was Gloria Upson and understudying, no, then I was Cousin Fan and understudying, still understudying Gloria. Then I went on for Gloria because the girl gave her notice she didn't think she was getting enough money because she didn't have a song. She gave her, they didn't give her any more money, and they just said, okay. And they said, we think Laurie can do this, because I'd been on for her a few times.
Right.
So I was Gloria, then I became Gloria Upson. And after Gloria Upson, they said, we think you're getting just a little bit too old for Gloria Upson. We thought maybe, well, since you're understudying Agnes Gooch, we're going to put you on and see what happens. And they said it worked. And then they said, well, we've got to have Gene Sachs come in and take a look.
Right.
He came in and took a look. And he said, yeah, I guess so. It's all right with me. So I played Agnes Gooch. And I said to John Boab, it was Friar Carr and Harris also had a show that was in great shape down at the Palace, Sweet Charity.
Oh, yeah, of course.
After Mame and applause, Laurie appeared in The Grass Harp, Voices, The Utter Glory of Morrissey Hall, The Human Comedy, and Cabaret. In 1990, after nearly 4 decades on Broadway, having appeared in over 250 Actors' Equity shows, Laurie's agent suggested that she go to Hollywood and audition for commercials, television, and films. Within 2 weeks of having arrived in Los Angeles, Laurie was cast as the housekeeper in Bram Stoker's Dracula, directed by Francis Ford Coppola, followed by roles on Dave, Ed and His Dead Mother, Mr. Fix-It, and a few independent films. She also appeared in television shows such as Tales from the Crypt, Saved by the Bell, Teen Angel, In the Heat of the Night, Armillas, and many more.
Oh, I was going to mention the fact that once I finished with the cabaret, the next year I went out with for a year on a tour of the Phantom of the Opera, but it was the Ken Hill Phantom of the Opera. And we ended up in Honolulu, came back, went up to Pennsylvania, did Driving Miss Daisy. I was having a good time still living in New York and everything. And I had no intention of coming to California to live, but I did. And this is how it happened. I went to visit my agent's birthday party for his roommate on a Sunday afternoon, nice, quiet Sunday afternoon. Some of us were going to go to a movie. And he said, we were talking yesterday about the fact that we'd like... we thought maybe you should go to California because we've just opened an office out there and we need a character lady out there.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, he said, for the pilot season. I said, when's that? He said, well, last week would have been good. So I said, well, I'll see what I can do tomorrow, Monday. And I called, made a reservation, called him, and I said, I can go on Tuesday. Then I called a friend of mine out here and I said, since I don't drive, I'd like to stay someplace in Hollywood where I've stayed before. and you live in Hollywood. Could you do? He said, you can come and take care of my cat for a week, and because I'm going to be out of town, and when I come back, I'll be able to make sure that you get an apartment in that same building for a little while. I said, okay, I'll do that. So he said, I'll fax you the keys now. He did.
Right.
And I went to Equity that Monday afternoon, and a director friend of mine said, so what's up, Laurie, these days? And I said, I'm going to L.A. tomorrow for the pilot season. He said, Laurie, don't ever say that to them out there, because you'll never get a job if you say you're just there for the pilot season. So I didn't say that when I came out here. I came out, and the first day or so I went to an audition. My agent sent me to audition for, I said, I can stay out here. I like it out here. He said, that's what I was supposed to say. I like it out here, and I think I'm going to stay. And he said, well, I'll send you over to this commercial agent. Yeah, I need a commercial agent right away if I do that. I went over there, went to each of their little booths. They had an interview session with me. And finally, Judy Rich came out, and she said, you know, we're going to take Laurie. Why don't we just have her sign while she's here right now?
What's the point, right?
So I signed for commercials right away. And I went for an audition for a movie very shortly after that. And it was the Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Oh, my God.
And it was Francis Ford Coppola. So that morning, I rode the bus out to Sony Studios, which used to be MGM.
That's right.
Okay, I rode the bus out there, got off the bus, went down the street, got into had my papers ready to go, allowed to go into and I went into to a little place where they could put you on a bus and take you to the right studio.
Right.
They did that. And as I walked in the office, the phone was ringing. And the guy said, yeah, she's here right now. And I said, what is this?
Right.
And he said, my assistant just called and said, the perfect girl, the perfect little old lady for the part of the housekeeper in Dracula is walking down the street with an umbrella this morning. And I don't know whether she's coming to your studio, but we can't let her get away from here.
Right.
And so I auditioned right then. He sent the film over to the Coppola office, and they said, come back in an hour, and we're going to have some information for you.
Wow.
And I went back in an hour, and they said, we'd like for you to be in Dracula. So he said, in an hour, we're going to have Francis Ford Coppola wants to meet the people who are going to be in the housekeeping department.
Right.
On screen, and he's inviting you for Pheasant Under Glass.
Oh, my God.
So I called my mother in Lucasville, and I said, you're not going to believe what just happened to me.
Right.
I'm in Hollywood, and I just got a job already for 3 weeks or so of being in Dracula. I never was shown much in the film, but
Right.
I was so thrilled about all that. And I decided that I was going to stay out here.
Right.
And I did, and I had a wonderful place to stay.
And how long after you arrived in Hollywood did you get that job? Was it what, days, weeks?
About 2 weeks.
About 2 weeks.
About 2 weeks. And every morning, early in the morning, I'd get up and get on the bus and go to Sony Studios. And the studio that we were in out there, get this, was the great big soundstage studio that they had shot all of Esther Williams' swimming pool.
Oh my
They
God.
had built a house over that.
Over that. Amazing.
Could you believe that?
That's amazing.
So there was Esther Williams' swimming pool.
Oh.
And that's my story. So what's happened is, this is what I was thinking about today.
Wow.
Who could ask for anything more than this
That's it.
in life?
Right. Oh,
So for a kid from Lucasville, Ohio.
that's wonderful.
Lucasville, Ohio, I love. I went to school there, graduated when I was 16. Then I went into another phase of my life, from a small town to what I considered a big city, which was Cincinnati, because I had a scholarship to music school.
Right.
And I stayed there for 6 years, got a master's degree. And guess what? I got an honorary doctor's when I was out here in the Methodist Church.
Oh my God.
They gave me an honorary doctorate.
That's awesome.
The Methodist Church. Now, this was only, I was Cincinnati, which I thought was a big step forward. Then I taught in a couple of colleges and then went on to New York and had a wonderful career in New York.
You certainly did.
And came out here expecting to stay for the pilot season. And I'm still here. And so I say, I've had a wonderful life. I'm sitting back and enjoying it now and saying, who could ask for anything more?